Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points, and today on the show, we will be talking about Vegas. Can you hear my voice? I sound like Vegas, right? I sound like I just got back from Vegas. The funny thing is, this is the best I have ever felt the day after Vegas. But Vegas is still going to Vegas, and I am always going to sound when I get home from it like I was just in Vegas. But yeah, we have a lot to go over. Everything that I was hearing while I was out there. I every the some of the lack of a presence while I was out there. Rob and JJ just got there today. Um, there's just a lot. And I also like, even while there's a whole bunch of noise about LeBron and the Lakers and the Lakers positioning themselves for Jokic or for Giannis, and the potential friction that is created between the Lakers and LeBron. Even while all that has gone on, one of the things that I kind of felt myself thinking about, not just from like an existential God, why am I spending so much time thinking about this stuff standpoint, but like, how much does this noise with LeBron James matter? How much of the dramatization, whether it is internal or created from elsewhere, matter? And yeah, I honestly want to go over some of that with you guys. So that is going to be the plan for the show. We will go ahead and start with the craziest thing that I noticed while I was out there. A quick reminder, please do hit subscribe and please hit that like button here on YouTube. If you guys are tuning in from Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@Lakers Lounge to find the show there. If you guys are tuning in the morning via podcast, please hit subscribe and rate and review and all of that good stuff, wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey. So the craziest thing that I noticed, and I wasn't alone in noting this, was even while ESPN is spending actual game time paying attention to LeBron's posture on the sideline and who he's talking to and all this stuff, and I see people are now micro-analyzing the picture that the Lakers put up of LeBron and Jake LaRavia and Jared Vanderbilt and Austin Reeves and Jackson Hayes and DeAndre Ayton. They're all standing there. And now that I saw a ton of like analyzing of LeBron dapping up Rob, and do they actually like each other? They didn't go for the full hug, all of that stuff. Even while that seems to be kind of what is fueling headlines the most right now, I don't want to. I'm just going to say it. I think the league has kind of moved on from this stuff with LeBron specifically, in that, like, yeah, it's good internet fodder. It's the kind of thing that you can lead ESPN with. I'm leading my show with it. But what I really noticed was the vast majority of the conversations that I had weren't about like, ooh, how does LeBron feel about the Lakers? Like, it was a lot more of, hey, so we're heading towards one of those summers. And now that we're operating in this free agency era, we're heading for at least a year or so, maybe more, of speculation about Giannis's future, about Jokic's future, about Luka's future. Because, you talk to Denver people, they seem pretty confident that maybe, just maybe, Luka will get frustrated with all the nonsense that goes on in LA and maybe wants to go to Denver and play with Jokic. Everybody is looking at Milwaukee, and it's like, yeah, that's cool that y'all made that gamble to go out and get Miles Turner, but your books are bleeped moving forward. And if Giannis and that Bucks team aren't favorites to come out of the just absolutely ravaged Eastern Conference, then what is he actually doing there? And then, from the Lakers standpoint and from some of these other teams' standpoints, if things don't go well for the Nuggets this season, and the Lakers basically offer Luka and Jokic the opportunity to play together and basically build out their organization together, by way of all of the flexibility that the Lakers have, then is that the path that everybody kind of heads down? And so like even while, and we'll talk about LeBron here in a bit, and and even while there's a ton of stuff to kind of note, the fact that Rob wasn't there basically for most of the first weekend was weird. The fact that JJ Redick, I believe, was on vacation for the first couple of days struck people as a little odd. The fact that LeBron missed that first game, even while Savannah was there for it, struck people as odd. Even while all of that stuff is fun to just kind of speculate about, and while that is kind of what ESPN and I guess we focus on more, the thing that more people wanted to talk to me about more than anything easily was the way that the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Bucks, the Heat, and maybe some of these other teams that we didn't even recognize or list are positioning themselves for that free agency of 2026 or free agency of 2027. That's what I think a lot of people want to talk about. So let's talk about it. So first and foremost, I want to start with the optimistic view is that so long as we are to assume that the Lakers have kept Luka, at a they have maintained that he's a central voice in these conversations as the Lakers kind of plan out and chart out their future with them. If we are to assume that, then it's also then a safe assumption that the Lakers and Luka are on the same page when they say they want to keep their books open for the pre-agency of 2026 and the free agency of 2027. So if we're assuming those things, which some people around the league don't think is a safe assumption, but for the sake of this conversation, for the sake of optimism within this conversation, if we are to assume those things, then all of the noise has been much ado about nothing, as the Lakers have, prioritized their future financial flexibility over maximizing the window that they have with LeBron and Luka. And the player that comes to mind most there, and the player that I get asked about the most often by listeners, and also shouts to everybody that like, came out and said hi. I didn't spend any time in the arena this year. I don't know, those of you know, but Odyssey made me an ambassador, and I spent a lot of time talking to other podcasters, as well as, the normal meetings that you take and the people you bump into wherever you bump into them. Um, but like to be out and around in Vegas and to have people say, dude, I've been listening to your stuff since Locked On Lakers. That's really cool. It means a lot to me. I handle those situations probably not the best because I have such intense imposter syndrome that I just don't ever believe that y'all listen. I always think that I'm just like, streaming live, and the fact that apparently 1,000 people happen to like it's, I just feel like that's just bots. And I always convince myself that's just bots because my family is very good at humbling me. But yeah, that stuff means a lot. And to those of you who stopped and said hi and whatever, that was really cool of you. But yeah, so when I was walking around and when I was bumping into people, especially league personnel, some of the people I was bumping into were saying, I don't know that is something the Lakers should be assuming, given the work that some of these other teams are doing to convince their guys to stay if it's Denver, and then will eventually be doing to convince Luka to go to Denver. And it's kind of interesting to see the two differing approaches, specifically between the Nuggets and with the Lakers, where the Lakers are kind of again assuming and remain confident that Luka will be a Laker long term. Even while they're assuming that, they're putting at risk that relationship, depending on how Luka feels about spending a year of his prime, not necessarily pushing chips into the middle of the table to compete for a championship this year. In Denver, they're doing the opposite. They just traded a first round pick to turn Michael Porter Jr. Into Cam Johnson. They were able to convince Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. to come over on minimum contracts. The Dario Saric signing from last year was not going well. They turned him into Jonas Valanciunas, and Denver's path apparently to maybe convincing Luka to come is we don't waste years of prime. I don't know why I said that like a European. We don't use years of prime. Even though I would argue that, they tried to do the two timeline thing and Peyton Watson didn't take the steps forward that they were looking for. And Christian Brown did improve and that really helped, but not enough of the other guys did. And now we'll see what that team is capable of. I think they have a real chance at winning a championship this year. And if they win a championship and they go to Luka and they're like, you want to join? Or even if they come really, really close to winning a championship and they go to Luka and they say, we just competed last year. You guys started Jackson Hayes in a playoff series a year ago. You tell me what situation you want. Um, and I think that would be the risk, and that's what other people around the league are kind of pointing to. That said, for whatever reason, I didn't talk to a single Lakers person or anybody Lakers adjacent who was not really, really confident that Luka's eventually going to ink some kind of an extension in a month or so, and that he is in on this path toward flexibility, whether it is to bring in a Giannis or a Jokic, or if it's to go out and build out a more balanced roster without one of those two guys. Like no matter what it is, Luka seems bought in, and the anticipation is that he is going to be a Laker for a really, really long time, if not, maintaining the plan of retiring a Laker. And so it's like, I, what do I do there, right? It's like I always talk about when I try to contextualize my reporting. There are things that people around the league are saying and talking about, and then there are stances that people closer to the Lakers are maintaining. And my job is to find the truth somewhere in the middle or closer to one side over the other. In this case, I believe that the Lakers are confident in their ability to retain Luka. I don't think they would be operating the way that they were if they didn't have the utmost confidence in their ability to retain Luka. And even, if you want to take it a step further, the Lakers just went out and got Luka the starting center that he needed, and they got him the starting center that his agency is going to be really excited to have playing with Luka and on the Lakers, and hopefully on the Lakers long term. So yeah, I think for as it stands right now, um, I kind of just have to trust that the Lakers have their confidence well placed. Now, we have seen them confident in the past and have that not work out, though we haven't seen that, like Dwight, right, was a one and done with the Lakers kind of a situation. And they were probably fairly confident going into that offseason that they would be able to keep him. that was a different front office, is what I would say to that. And then, with these other situations, with free agency situations, most notably with Kawhi, the Lakers thought they were getting him, and then at the last minute didn't. And, that lack of intel, or that poor intel, really kind of stung. But they were able to pivot and build out a balanced roster around LeBron and AD, and they won a championship that year. So, in this case, I think for the Lakers, they want to have another opportunity like they had in heading into 2019 and 2020, where, okay, if they get a Luka Giannis pairing, they also have some flexibility to build around those guys. If they don't get a Luka Giannis or a Luka Jokic pairing, they have further flexibility to build around Luka and, basically surround him with the freaking pack of wild dogs that it takes athletically to surround Luka Doncic. So I I'm intrigued, I guess, by the plan a little bit more. Now, what I'm going to talk about next is the other part of this that people around the league are kind of intrigued by is, well, why are we just casting the season that LeBron had off again? So let's talk about that. When I had conversations with people about LeBron and the Lakers, I mean, the understanding is out there, right? That relationship between LeBron and the Lakers has been healthier in the past. And that's all I was saying on the pod that one day when the chat was blowing me up, saying, like, oh, you're making this up. Y'all are just doing all this for clicks. I'm not. I have never felt the need to do anything for clicks. Those come organically for whatever reason. But when I talk to people about LeBron and the Lakers, it's kind of understood that LeBron's kind of frustrated looking at yet another offseason where the Lakers are telling him, oh, just wait, just wait, just wait. And this time they're doing so at the very end of his career. So, of course, he's going to leak it out there and say, this sucks. I don't like that you guys continue to look past my career while I am still here selling your tickets to your games. LeBron, it should be mentioned, is coming off of a better season than Luka had last year. If I were LeBron, I'd be like, I'm still pretty freaking good. Can we see what Luka and I are capable of? And I'm sure there's a part of Luka that would like to see what he and LeBron are capable of. And if I probably had to predict how this is going to go, I think they do whatever they can to open up as much flexibility as they can heading into the season, with the intent to trade Maxi Kleba and to trade Gabe Vincent a little closer to the deadline, when prices on some of these role players drop a little bit. They have a better understanding of what this team actually looks like. They have a better understanding of who DeAndre Ayton might actually be this season, and maybe even moving forward, and kind of carry it out that way. Does that mean a trade definitely isn't happening? Of course not. Like, Rob just got to Vegas, and this is something that he has been looking forward to. He likes having those conversations in person. I know people kind of roll their eyes and laugh at the idea of that same leak that happens every year, but he likes having those conversations, and we'll see how effective and productive those conversations might be. But from the standpoint of, and this is what people around the league, I think, are a lot more interested. I don't think anybody truly believes that LeBron will not be a Laker at the beginning of this season. Nobody I spoke to held that honest belief. There's some people who maybe wonder about it. There are some people who might be connecting dots, but like almost to a man, it was, yeah, we know he's kind of frustrated there. We kind of get why he's frustrated there, but really, what are his options? Because at the end of the day, look at it this way. If the Lakers make a trade that benefits them, maintains their financial flexibility that they are valuing, then that's probably not going to be the kind of trade that helps the team that LeBron is going to be the best that it can be if the point is to go out and win a championship in that city. And I don't think LeBron is all that interested in winning a championship on a veteran minimum contract for some other team and then resetting his free agency heading into next season if he decides to play again. And by the way, I don't see a world where LeBron, retires after the season without some kind of a farewell tour. That's not how this is going to go either, I don't think. So, yeah, I don't know. I think for the most part, everybody, whether it's around the league or close to the Lakers, just kind of accepts that, yeah, it's a little awkward between the Lakers and LeBron right now, but it's nothing that both sides can't eventually get over. And it's nothing that would make LeBron want to take a step that would hurt his legacy just for the sake of getting away from the Lakers. I don't really see that happening either. So the likeliest scenario here, the likeliest outcome to all of this noise is that LeBron, whether it's reluctantly or excitedly, I don't know, comes back to the Lakers, goes through training camp, and they see what this team is capable of. And then they see where things stand closer to the deadline in terms of how much help this team might actually need and how close this team actually is. Um, or they see that they're really far apart, and LeBron says at that time, all right, I had my doubts coming into the season, and those doubts were confirmed. Can we get me out of here? But from what I've been told, the Lakers will not, I mean, they can't contractually, but the Lakers will not trade LeBron or enter trade negotiations with another team without LeBron first specifically and explicitly asking them for a trade. None of this passive aggressive stuff, none of this public pressure stuff. No, it would take LeBron going to the Lakers and saying, I am done. We are done. Find me a trade. I would prefer to go to X, Y, or Z cities, and let's all just call it what it is. The other one that I know a lot of teams around the league are waiting for is, well, we've seen some of these other guys bought out. Would the Lakers ever buy out LeBron? And again, I'm told that if LeBron were to be bought out, it would be because he specifically went to the Lakers and, again, explicitly asked or demanded them buy him out. And even then, I'm told it's probably not going to happen. They would explain to LeBron, just like Dr. Buss explained to Kobe, we we can't just lose you for stuff or for nothing and have you go to a different city and continue to play basketball because that's a bad look for us. So I think the likeliest scenario is that LeBron remains a Laker heading into the season and they try to see how close they are. And I think there are going to be some things that they do before the season starts. They're still working on a consolidation trade, I'm told. They're still making calls and meetings, taking actual meetings in Vegas this week. They are, they have options in terms of waiving Shake or waiving Jordan Goodwin, depending on which players hit the buyout market. I just saw Rashawn Holmes was waived today by the Washington Wizards. And if the Lakers decide, well, he might be a little bit better. I think he is probably better than Jackson Hayes. But maybe they decide to head down that path and see what they can get with him. But if they do that, then not only do you need to waive Shake and Goodwin, but you also need to open up roster spots, and you probably need to do more to maintain that biannual exception flexibility. Which we'll see what comes of that. One thing I heard over the weekend that I think is important context to keep in mind, as the Lakers maybe choose to open up that biannual exception is, I believe if a player, and I'll have to check with Yossi on this, but if a player signs on the biannual exception, it has to be a 2-year deal. And what uh what buyout players are looking for is the opportunity to prove that they are still good, and more importantly, prove that they are above minimum type players. And if you're on a 2-year deal and the league gets 2 years of used to you being on either a minimum or a $5-ish million a year contract, that's a habit a league-wide habit that player would need to make, and he would have to vastly outperform that contract to get paid even better at the end of it. So some of these players, when these teams that have the biannual exception go to them and say, "Hey, we can offer you this much money, but it's on the biannual exception," that is giving some players pause in terms of their flexibility if they have a good season after this, or if this upcoming season, while they're on that contract, is good and it's productive. Some of those players are saying, "Yeah, but does that actually do me anything?" So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind with, I think, the Bradley Beals of the world, the Marcus Smarts of the world. I don't think Rashawn Holmes would matter. I think he's a minimum veteran minimum type player anyway. But if that's what if that's what the Lakers are hoping to offer some of these players, then yeah, that's why some guys are a little bit hesitant to take them up on that offer. Maybe even including DeAnthony Melton to this point. Um, the other bit here that I heard a lot about was as it pertains to the specific basketball that the Lakers are going to be looking to play next season, um, what various parties are doing to prepare themselves for it. Now, going into Vegas, I heard tons about, of optimism of, yeah, LeBron and Luka, they've spoken at various points this offseason. These guys are two of the brightest offensive minds that the league's ever had. And maybe, just maybe, those guys can work that out. Um, and I'm not here saying that that optimism was misplaced. I do think of eventually, if it does, and as it looks more and more likely that LeBron is just going to be on the Lakers next season, um, I do think that, because of his investment into the JJ Redick hire, I think he cares about that. Because of his investment into winning a championship potentially with Bronny on the roster, and also from Luka's standpoint, because he really, really matters here, maybe even more than LeBron does. Um, Luka specifically would like to try to make it work with his basketball idol in LeBron James. And so I think one of the things that hasn't been reported a ton on is some of the optimism I sensed in belief that the Lakers will look better next year by way of LeBron and Luka, and ideally by extension Austin. What those guys might be able to do together with a full off season under their belt and a lot more time and reps to be able to figure out how to play together, because it is kind of tough. There is a lot of overlap there. But I still think at the end of the day, there was a lot more meat than they got off of that bone over the course of the time that they spent together last season. And actually, DeAndre Ayton helps unlock some of that as well. So I think there's a lot more optimism out there. Now, this is closer to the Lakers, and they're going to want to show optimism at this time of year. But there's a lot more optimism of, like, I mean, and it's kind of awkward because they just brought back Jackson, but they're kind of looking at, when I've got basketball conversations with people, they're like, it was Jackson. That was our starting center in a playoff series against that Minnesota team. Can we just see what this looks like? And I mean, my I guess interest is peaked. So to recap really quickly before I dive into some of the questions, and I'm not going to do the full-on mailbag in this episode. I'll do that tomorrow because I am tired. But to recap, I think the story in the NBA this season is going to be the way that these teams position themselves for the pre-agency and the free agency of Nikola Jokic, of Giannis Antetokounmpo, and of Luka Doncic. That is going to be the story this season. The next takeaway is that actually, you know what? I meant to talk about this, so I'll come back to it in a second. But the next takeaway from this is that even while the noise is really, really loud, does it actually have to matter how happy LeBron is with the Lakers on July 15th when he doesn't have to, go to camp until September or, late August if he decides to, and the Lakers decide, the players decide to get everybody together before training camp. Even that is at least a month from now. So however angry LeBron might be with the situation right now on July 15th, how much does that actually matter? I think that's worth talking about. Let's talk about that in a second. So that's takeaway number 2 is yeah, there is noise. There is certainly smoke that the Lakers and LeBron have been on better terms before, but the part of that conversation that isn't being had on some of these national platforms is how much does that actually matter? Can those two sides get onto the same page before next season starts? And if so, what does that look like? So we'll talk about that here in a second. And then the third one is the Lakers clearly know and understand that more needs to be done for this roster, and they're working on it. And we'll see what that looks like. Now, the Wiggins stuff, I was told earlier today that those talks are pretty dead. Um, the Lakers and Heat were never able to get anywhere close to the same page as far as what both teams were trying to accomplish in such a trade. And now it can be picked back up at some point, but as it stands right now, it doesn't seem likely that anything is going to come of those talks from a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago. And then as far as what else the Lakers are looking to do, I do think the Lakers want to open up that biannual exception. I think they do want to be productive with that cap spot, and then if they find a reason to open up more roster spots beyond that, they'll do whatever they can to do that as well. So raise your hand if you've been in Vegas and you've had a few glasses of whatever, and at some point you have some far deeper conversation with somebody or with yourself internally, it was like, man, how much does any of this matter? And I had one of those moments where it was, sitting there, and it was the 73rd conversation about the LeBron and Lakers latest chapter of drama. And, I've made all the same points that I made over the course of the whole weekend. And I'm in my hotel room the next morning, and I have every cobweb that has ever existed just covering my eyes, and whole world looks fuzzy, and I'm sitting there in a haze, and I'm just kind of like leaning back in my chair, and I'm just like, man, how much does this fucking matter? And now it was kind of a question of my own, right? Because I'm away from my family. I love my kids. The older that I get, the harder that it is to leave my kids. This time in particular, Avery is 5, and it was really hard on her for me to I work from home. I'm with my kids all day, every day. And I guess Avery, when I talked to Jen on the phone before I boarded my flight, I guess Avery was sitting there, and she was, I guess, having a really tough time, and she eventually got over it because they went to my brother and sister-in-law's, and they spent the night there, and Avery had a really good time with her cousin. But still, it's tough to hear that my daughter is like crying for a solid half hour or so because she misses her daddy. Um, and it's tough to, I picked up Miles when I got home from this trip here today, and he felt bigger, he felt heavier, and I'm like, man, I don't like missing out on that stuff. And so it's like this combination of everything, and you're hungover, and you're looking at Vegas, in the light of day, and it looks very different in the light of day than it does at night. And I'm just sitting, it's like, how much does, like, why are we doing this LeBron thing again? What are we doing here? What am I doing here? And and my, like, that's kind of where I landed on in terms of this latest chapter of drama here with the Lakers. Why does it matter on July 15th that LeBron is frustrated that the Lakers haven't gone all in yet on improving this roster? Like, they have a whole rest of the offseason to address some of this stuff. Why does it matter that LeBron is frustrated that they let Dorian Finney-Smith walk when Dorian walking led to an improvement on this roster? DeAndre Ayton and Jake LaRavia combined, especially on a team that didn't have a starting center before, are going to be more impactful than Dorian Finney-Smith was going to be next year. So it's like, how much does that actually matter? And I kind of arrived at like, yeah, I have something coming out probably tomorrow about the LeBron and Lakers thing and this waiting game that they're both playing with, against each other or with each other. But even there, even after writing that on my notepad on my phone on the way home, because Southwest Wi-Fi sucks. Hope you're not a sponsor. Um, Even after I wrote it, I just sat there and I was like looking at my ginger ale and saying, does this matter? Or are we just feeding an industry that has been reliant upon LeBron James rumors for 20 something years now? And I think where I kind of land on is, it just depends on your perspective on this. If you think it matters, every single thing that comes out is going to fit your worldview on this. And if you think it matters, and if you think all of this noise matters, and if you think all of this drama is going to end in LeBron eventually asking out, then you're going to look at everything through that worldview. If you're the kind of person who, like, I was listening to LFR, and I think Pete is extremely dismissive of all of this stuff. And it doesn't matter what new bit of reporting comes out, because if it goes against his worldview or his view on this topic, then he's going to dismiss it. The funny thing about this LeBron shit is, because of how subliminal he's been over his entire career, both sides of this equation think the other side is being intentionally obtuse. Here's an example. So I'm literally boarding my flight this morning. I'm exhausted. I think I got a combined like 12 hours of sleep over the weekend. And I sent out this tweet after seeing LeBron retweet Shams' report about Kobe Altman. So LeBron's tweet was, where is it? All right. So Shams tweets out that Kobe Altman, the architect of the burgeoning title contender, has signed a contract extension through 29 and 30. Cavs front office, including Mike Yancey and Brandon Weems, received extensions amid the rise to the number one seed in the East. So I saw, and again, I'm boarding my flight, like literally on that stupid tramway, which was baking in the Vegas heat. I see that tweet. and I just kind of chuckle at it because of all the other stuff that LeBron has been up to this summer, because of all that I know about how kind of annoyed he is with yet another summer of being told, yeah, but just wait. I see that tweet from LeBron, and I retweet it, and I send out the tweet. LeBron tweeting congratulations to the Cavs GM is just too perfect. LOL. So while I was in the air because I didn't pay for Wi-Fi, that tweet, I wouldn't say it blows up, but people certainly had their responses to it, right? Me saying that it was me chuckling at LeBron tweeting congratulations to the Cavs front office. And people, again, it all just kind of everything is going to confirm your worldview here. So if you are of the mindset that LeBron is doing yet another thing to passive aggressively apply pressure to the front office, to the Lakers front office, by congratulating the Cavs front office, then you're going to hit like on that tweet and go on about your day. If you're of the mindset of, no, everybody always blows this shit out of proportion with LeBron, can we stop all of this nonsense? Then you're going to reply to me and say, actually, he was congratulating his lifelong friend, and I hate that we do this all the time. And the two sides, I saw it in my mentions, the two sides of that conversation consider the other side intentionally obtuse. And at the end of the day, the lesson that I took from it was none of this fucking matters. Like the lesson that I took from all of it was like, if you think it matters, it mattered. If you didn't think it mattered, it didn't matter. And if you thought it mattered and you saw somebody else say that they don't think it mattered, then you're going to call that person an idiot for saying that it does or does not matter, whatever it is. And I think at the, from the standpoint of, as Lakers fans, what we should be rooting for, it's pretty clear that the Lakers would be better with LeBron James on their roster next year. And for what, like, LeBron is rooting for, LeBron is he agrees we should agree with LeBron. LeBron wants the team to look better next season while he has this opportunity with him and Luka. I agree. And everybody is just so steadfast in their positions on either side of this. If you're a Kobe guy and you don't like LeBron, you're going to say, fuck LeBron. And I'm done with all of this shit. Go off to Cleveland if you want. And if you're a LeBron guy who like reluctantly rooted for the Lakers because your guy went to the Lakers and you probably didn't feel all that great about Kobe back in the day, or the Lakers organization in general, like this has been another funny thing that I've noticed with Luka fans. It's like Luka fans probably hate the Lakers. Like, and yet they now kind of reluctantly have to root for the Lakers. And you have this awkward two-step that Lakers fans and former Mavericks fans or current Mavericks fans or Luka fans are doing together. And you have that same kind of awkward dance between Lakers fans and LeBron fans over the last, 7-8 years or so, and how sick both parties are of each other there. And where it leads to is an entire conversation where nobody wants to hear anything that contradicts their worldview. And anybody who does contradict their worldview, they're idiots and they're morons and they're this and they're that. And I don't know. I muted that tweet. So if you're replying to it still, apologies. All right. Let's really quickly, we have some starred comments here, which means we get to play this bad boy. All right. First starred comment is from Ryan Lucas, who writes, add Beal on the BAE and Chris Paul on the minimum. Then you trade for Thibault, and you lose Shake, Dalton, and Gabe in a trade. Then you have Luka, AR, Thibault, Braun, Ayton, with Chris Paul, Bradley Beal, Jake LaRavia, Rui, and Hayes as your rotation. Yeah, I mean, it's It'd be a nice outcome. The hang up that Chris Paul is having right now is that he would like to start, and most teams that he is talking to, especially in the LA market where he would like to be closer to home, are telling him that no, sorry, Chris, you're not going to start. In the Clippers case, they have James Harden, and in the Lakers case, they have Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. And yeah, if Chris Paul wants to start in Southern California, then he could maybe do it for the South Bay Lakers. I'm kidding. But Chris Paul, I think, is probably going to look to find the absolute best situation that he can find. I think he also would like to maximize his earnings. So if he can get an offer above the veteran minimum contract, then he would. But on top of that as well, I think his top priority is to remain somewhat close to the West Coast and give himself a chance at winning a championship. And yeah, I would. There's a lot of Clippers noise there, but if the Lakers could somehow convince him to, be their backup point guard, I could kind of see it. He was really good actually for San Antonio last year. The problem is he's really small, and I kind of want the Lakers to have like a you must be this tall to ride this ride rule next year, and this tall would have to sit at like 6'4" and up. That's how I would like to see the Lakers built out. Obviously, you kind of have to make an exception there with Bronny. He's shorter. But I would like to see the Lakers be, really, really big next year because I don't think they're going to be very athletic. So I would like to see if they can be big enough to just kind of suffocate the court and just kind of beat teams into submission. And I don't think that's really Chris Paul's MO. But the Beal thing also is kind of tough because there's a decent chance he can get more from a different team. I don't know how interested he is in a $5-ish million contract for 2 years, as he would have it with the signing by signing the biannual. So that complicates things a little bit. I know that all of the reporting to this point has indicated that Beal is eventually going to be bought out. But I still really feel kind of icky about this whole thing. It really comes across as Phoenix basically trying to speak that buyout into existence because it would involve Beal giving up $13 million or $14 million just to be bought out and waived. And yeah, he would get control over his situation, but Beal has never seemed to care about that stuff. He remained in Washington while they mostly sucked because he liked making as much money as he could. And that's where he would be able to do it in Washington. He has maintained this no trade clause because he wanted to maintain that control over his career to ensure that if he went anywhere, his bird rights would remain intact because that maximizes his contractual earning potential. And I just don't see Beal going back on all of that, right now. So I'm still somewhat skeptical that Beal eventually gets bought out. I know the whole league is kind of waiting for it. It's going to be interesting to see over the course of this week if the league eventually just kind of moves on because this thing has been lingering for a while. Intel Wild, if LeBron stays this season but leaves next season, who does he go to and for how much? Well, that's another thing here that I kind of wrote about is, yeah, more teams have more cap space next year than they did this year because everybody's books were kind of bleep this year. But there aren't very many situations that LeBron can walk to while also making the $50-ish million he kind of wants to continue making for playing basketball. There aren't a ton of teams that have $50 million in cap space that also would have a real chance at winning a championship. So would he take a big pay cut and lose his bird rights to go play a year or so in Cleveland or in Golden State or something like that just to pursue a title that everybody is going to immediately poke a hole in because he signed somewhere on the minimum. I don't know. I don't necessarily see it. So I was actually told over the weekend that not only is it more likely that LeBron remains a Laker this year, but it's still more probable than not that he finishes out his career as a Laker after re-signing next season, ideally after the Lakers are able to build a better roster using the additional draft picks and the financial flexibility that they'll have. Um, that's something to kind of keep an eye out for. But his options in free agency aren't great next year, especially if the point remains to win a to win a championship before his career is over. Other part of that too is that he would, if he leaves in free agency, Bronny is under contract, so that makes it kind of tough too. Let's run with Jason Kelly writes, if ruining things with LeBron and flopping on Project 2027 gets Rob and Jeannie canned, it's worth it. Just because Nico's dumb doesn't mean you're smart. I still believe, even while we got that report that Jeannie is going to remain governor until 2027, I don't think she'll have the power that a typical governor does. And the thing that we're going to be watching for is how quickly more resources are invested into the Lakers once this deal is officially finalized. I know a lot of people were like, "Yeah, but why wait? Like why does it matter? This thing is going to get done." Uh look, you never want to spend money on stuff before you have it. And if you're Mark Walter and you're Guggenheim and you know how much it's going to cost to modernize the Lakers, I wouldn't want to do that until that sale is completely finalized. So the thing to watch for more, I think, importantly than Rob getting fired right away, because I don't think he'll get fired right away. I think they'll try to supplement him with modern resources and then eventually move off of him once they kind of realize the guy has no basketball vision. But I think it'll take a second to get there. But before they get there, I do think you'll see an addition. Like if the file if this if the sale was already finalized, I think we would see Masai Ujiri in the Lakers front office right now. I think we would see Bob Myers in the Lakers front office right now because that's exactly what well, it took them a second, but over the next couple of years, I think that's eventually what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot more brain power in that front office. Um, in the same way that we saw with the Dodgers, where not only was Ned Coletti let go, but they brought in Andrew Friedman, they brought in Alex Anthopoulos, who obviously built the Braves. They brought in Farhan Zaidi, and there's always another guy who I always forget, and I apologize for forgetting that guy. Um, but I think that'll be the first thing that they do, and depending on how open to those changes Jeannie and her like crew are, uh, that will, I think, dictate how long she remains governor of the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's run with Jason Kelly also writes Project 2027 won't have Reeves with a $20 million cap hold or the second greatest player of all time. Why would a Giannis who is hurt every year be any better than that? Yeah, I did find myself and I do find myself wondering at times about this Project 2027 thing is like in that world, you are either trading all of those players for Giannis and all of that stuff for Giannis and have skin and bones resources to build with Giannis and Luca, even granting that Giannis and Luca and maybe LeBron in that world is a pretty damn good starting spot. Um, so you have that to kind of mention. I don't think they would just let Reeves walk. I'm even kind of skeptical that they would just let Rui walk. I don't think like Rui is going to get his extension next year, just in case they would like to maintain some of that flexibility. But yeah, the Project Giannis thing and the Project Jokic thing, there are some very clear holes in that plan that over the course of the next year or so, and certainly heading into this upcoming season, there are some details, there's some gaps in that plan that I hope are filled better than they have been to this point. Jason Kelly again. I just want Braun back to Cleveland where he belongs. I I get it. Like I mean that I get it more from the standpoint of I just think if LeBron asks for a buyout, I honestly think the Lakers owe it to him to grant him that buyout. He came to the Lakers at an absolute low point. They were in the middle of a freaking coup attempt when Jim and Johnny Bus were trying to take the team from Genie. That team was awful, and they were stuck in that treadmill of being bad and drafting young players, and none of those guys I never thought were ever going to pop to the extent that they would need to pop to get the Lakers back to championship contention. And LeBron came to the Lakers for that nonetheless. Now, you can say for whatever reason, you could say it was for movies, you could say it's for LA, you could say whatever. But at the end of the day, like, he came to the Lakers, he won them a championship in short order after he came to the Lakers. He has held off father time in ways that we have never seen in the sport before to keep the Lakers relevant, even while they have been reluctant to push chips into the middle of the table. He brought you Anthony Davis. Um, I I'm of the opinion that if he asks for a buyout and he asks for a buyout for Bronny, so the two of them can go up to Cleveland or whatever, I think the Lakers should grant him that buyout. Now, does that mean they will? I don't know. They and I tend to disagree on a lot of stuff. But that's how I think this should play out. If that's something that he, again, and he would have to explicitly ask for it, go into Genie's office and say, "This is what I want. This is where I want to finish out my career." And then they could have that conversation. To the best of my understanding to this point, they have not had that conversation, nor have they come close to it. All right, so I still have to edit and post and all of this stuff with this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and end this thing here while I have any voice whatsoever. And then the plan is to pop right back here into the lounge tomorrow and answer the questions that I asked for on Twitter yesterday. And then I'll answer, obviously, Apple 5-star review questions and all of that good stuff as well. So keep an eye out for that. And obviously, if we get any kind of breaking news or anything like that, I'll pop in here as well. It'll be easier for me to do that with my parents in town and as they can watch the kids. So yeah, that is going to be the plan. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you when I talk to you. Have a good one, everybody.